Hey friends, it's Phil here, and I got this new single out called I Wanna Rock Socially Responsibly, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a teardown, a breakdown of the song and the recording process for you to check out here. So, the song is called I Wanna Rock Socially Responsibly. The premise of the song is that I was listening back to a bunch of the old rock and metal stuff, hard rock stuff from my teenage years, and I realized how violent and homophobic and misogynistic and it all is, right? Well, not all of it, but a lot of it is. And I thought, man, these songs would never come out today. And so I thought I should write a song in that kind of 80s rock style, but with a more modern, politically correct mindset about it. And of course, it's comedy music, so we're gonna take it to the extreme, right? And it's an interesting thing about this song. I performed it for a bunch of months before I got around to recording it. And it was people either called it the funniest song I've ever written, or they barely reacted at all to it. So I think it's an audience-specific song, you might say. But I like it. It's fun. It was a lot of fun to record. And so let's dig into the actual recording process, and I'll show you what I did with it here and all the moving parts. All right, here we go. Okay, so here we are looking at the music files for I Wanna Rock Socially Responsibly, and I think there's a little bit of a glare on the screen, but we'll call it artsy. It's from the skylight here in my studio, but artsy's good. Artsy will work, right? So there's 22 tracks worth of stuff on here, and a couple of them are compression buses and things like that, but just raw instruments, there's and voices and things like that. There's probably 19, 20 different things on this track. So it took it a long way from the just acoustic guitar thing that I was doing live and built it up into a full band arrangement. And one of these days I'll learn how to use screen capture software on this so I don't have to do it this way. But anyway, here we go. So here we start with the song, right? And
1, 2, 3, 4.
So that's what the song sounds like. If you haven't heard it yet, I'll link to the actual video of the song so that you can check that out, or the whole thing, of course. But so what I usually start with when I get into a recording studio is I will start with just the drums. All right, and so the drums on this one, if we listen to them by themselves, pretty standard rock drum stuff. But what might interest you is what my drums actually sound like by themselves without all the effects and stuff on them. Yeah, drums sound like garbage by themselves, especially mine, because they're very old and I've never changed the heads on them. And there's a whole story about where I got them. One of my drummers ended up in jail, and anything. It's a story for another time. But so what I did is applied samples, resampled the drums with real drums, but it's actually me playing the drums. And I was very proud of myself on this one because I didn't have to edit the crap out of them. I actually played most of the way through and didn't have to change a bunch of stuff up. So then the drums come in. So and then for the guitar stuff, what I really used a lot was kind of those old school, 80s kind of guitar sounds with a lot of Marshall, a lot of orange amp kind of sounds. So on the left side over there, we've got the Marshall-y kind of sounds. And then what I did on the right side to give it a little bit of difference is that's where I used an orange amp kind of sound. Now, if you're a guitar player, you're going, oh, of course, those sound totally different. And if you're not a guitar player, you're probably going, oh, those sound totally the same. But that's okay. That's cool. They are different sounds, and they just serve to kind of open up the sound a little bit. And those are panned hard left and right. And then, of course, it's not 80s rock without giant lead guitar stuff, right? So what I did there is super wanky stuff in the background. that probably would not be pleasant to listen to if it were actually mixed up front, but I mixed it way to the background on this one. Right? Super wanky. And it wasn't, I thought about doing a full, like, upfront guitar solo with this one, and I had some ideas for it, I had some comedy ideas for it, and then I just didn't really get around to doing it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe in a reboot of the song later on. So we got the drum parts, we got the guitar parts. Bass is just bass, right? 80s rock bass is not anything spectacular or super interesting. So that's just chugging along on the roots of the chords like you might normally hear. So we got the drums, we got the bass, we got the guitars. That's our basic rock stuff. Then I wanted to put on just a little bit of juicy goodness. It's like glue for the mix. And so I've got this one little roto speaker guitar in here. Right, and all that does is kind of glue things together. So it just puts a little bit of polish, a little bit of blurring of the edges on the mix there with that little roto lead. So then all that's left to do, right? That's like tons of tracks already, is all that stuff. Drums take up a lot of tracks. So then all that's left is to hit those vocals, right? And I originally had done some doubling of the lead vocals on this one, and just decided that it didn't need it after all. So the vocals are just one solid track all the way through. Right up here at the top, you can see I did cut up a bunch of takes and things like that.
The town and tearing it down, we're gonna up and gentrify this bitch, but we'll always make sure that there's affordable housing.
Now the thing that always makes me laugh when you listen to vocals by themselves, they always sound totally over-affected and just ridiculous, but in the mix that's what it needs, you know. But that's why we never listen to vocal tracks by themselves, because they sound terrible. And then the last thing I did was pop a bunch of background vocals on here. Here they come. Right, so now we can listen to those in context. They're mixed way to the back, but they're just there to just kind of glue the mix together a little bit, and add a little bit of higher energy stuff during some of the choruses. I didn't use them during the early choruses because I wanted to leave myself room to build. And there you go. So you can hear that. I barely hear those background vocals in the back. So there's always a lot of stuff in a mix that you can just kind of barely hear. That's just there to kind of glue the mix together. So besides the fact that it's got 22 tracks and a lot of stuff, it's pretty basic. It's drums, guitar, bass, vocals. I didn't do anything crazy on this one like some of the other tracks I've done. But that's how you put together that 80s rock sound. And what was nice is some people have told me that even though it's like an 80s rock vibe, I did give it kind of a modern edge, which I don't know how I did that. Probably the screaming at the end that was a little more modern, or maybe it was the just using some of the orange amps, which is a more popular amp these days than it was kind of back in the 80s, that kind of thing. I don't know, but that's what it came out to like. So if you haven't heard the whole track yet, I will link to it in the show notes, and I'll probably link to it somewhere around here, and you can hear the whole thing. And that is how I put together I Want to Rock Socially Responsibly. Hope you dug it. Talk to you later.